able to put this.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, good morning. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 2022 Rare Disease Day celebration in New Jersey. For those who don't know me, my name is Julie Raskin, and I am one of the Rare Action Network co-ambassadors for the state of New Jersey. I'm also the executive director of Congenital Hyperinsulinism International, and I will be co-hosting this event with my wonderful co-ambassador, Patricia Gertz. So here in the slides, we see a photo of the Trenton Bridge, and it is all lit up in the Rare Disease Day colors. I want to thank Mandy Fahey of InSmed for getting the bridge lit up. And the bridge was part of the Light Up for Rare campaign, where hundreds, perhaps even thousands of buildings and monuments were lit up all over the world in honor of Rare Disease Day. Next slide, please. So I want to thank from the bottom of my heart all of the sponsors of Rare Disease Day. You sponsors make this important work of raising awareness of the needs of people with rare diseases. So thank you for this fantastic support to NORD, the National Organization of Rare Disorders. NORD is the official US sponsor of Rare Disease Day and helps the rare disease community in so many ways to advocate. Later in the program, you're going to hear from members of the NORD team. Next slide, please. So this is our agenda for today. And as you can see, our theme is unique. Unique to celebrate, unique to innovate, unique to educate, and unique to advocate. And many of us wear hats to do all of these things. But from our speakers today, you will learn about people and initiatives in the community, people and communities that are uniquely positioned to improve the lives of people with rare diseases. And we really have some incredible speakers today. Next slide, please. So the very first Rare Disease Day, and many of you know this, was in 2008, and it was on the rarest day of the year, February 29th. And since then, every year, there have been hundreds of events, perhaps thousands, where people are focusing on this campaign. And the focus is to achieve equitable access to diagnosis, to treatment, to health, to social care, and social opportunity for all people affected by a rare disease. Next slide, please. So you've probably been seeing "Show Your Stripes" everywhere. The hashtag, the tagline of rare diseases. And many of you know that the zebra is in fact our rare disease symbol. And I wanted to share this photo because it came into my social media feed because a member of our rare disease community, Congenital Hyperinsulinism, lives in Swaziland. And she was taking her two kids on a special day event to visit these zebras, was not even aware that zebras were the rare disease symbol. So I love this photo because it is completely authentic. It was taken last month in Africa. And it just illustrates what this whole campaign is about. It takes 6 to 8 years on average for somebody with a rare disease to be diagnosed. And that's because we assume when somebody has a set of symptoms that they have a common disease, but it's often a rare disease. So when we hear hoofbeats, we think horse, but with a rare disease, it's a zebra. And each person with a rare disease has their own unique set of symptoms. And this mirrors the unique set of stripes that each zebra has, which is why the zebra is truly the perfect symbol for Rare Disease Day. Next slide, please. We have two very important milestones to celebrate this year. One is international and one relates to our own state. In December, at the UN, there was a resolution adopted by the General Assembly to address the challenges of people living with rare diseases. And this is fantastic. And it's the result of collective action, collective impact, rare disease umbrella organizations from different countries coming together and working to make this happen. We're very excited about the future and how this resolution will be used in support of people with rare diseases. Many of you know that we had a tremendous milestone here in New Jersey. On June 30th, Governor Phil Murphy signed into law a bill that establishes a Rare Disease Advisory Council in New Jersey. Last year, this was the focus of our program as we were all working so hard to get this bill passed, and it did. I want to thank everybody who worked so hard to make this happen. Currently, the governor's office is vetting candidates for membership on this advisory council. We'll be in touch with the governor's office, and we cannot wait for this advisory council to begin its really important work. Next slide, please. So many of you know my Rare Disease Day and Rare Disease Inspiration, but for those of you who don't, these are my children when they were very little. On the left side, that's my daughter Hannah holding her little brother Ben. And Ben was born with congenital hyperinsulinism, which causes the overproduction of insulin. When babies are born, they need glucose to grow and develop. But when they don't have this source of fuel, this disease can cause death or it can cause brain damage. So it's very, very serious. There hasn't been a medication or a treatment approved that was developed for hyperinsulinism. And it's a hard condition to live with. Thankfully, thanks to incredible care at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, my son has grown up and he's doing incredibly well. This is a picture of him at his graduation. Next slide, please. But his condition led us to join with other families who have people in their families with congenital hyperinsulinism, and we joined together with researchers, with clinicians. We created an organization, Congenital Hyperinsulinism International, and I'm so excited to share that there are now 5 treatments in development, and we're really excited that the future is going to be bright. We've also created a collaborative research network to keep the research going, to ensure that there's access to the new medications, to ensure that there continues to be research for cures, and to ensure that we have faster and better ways to diagnose. So that is the end of my story. And now it's my great pleasure to thank you all for coming and for listening. There's so much more ahead today. And now I'm going to introduce Patricia Gertz, my incredible co-ambassador of the Rare Action Network for New Jersey. Patricia.
Am I hear me now? Good morning. I'm honored to be here to co-host Rare Disease Day with my wonderful colleague, Julie Raskin, who's been at this a very long time and has really taken me under her wings and showed me so much. And I'm very happy to be at this point today with her. I'm a mom of 5 children, and my youngest, her name is Kinsley. She was born with complex fragile medical needs. They gave her about a year to live, but now she's 8, and she has surpassed all, I guess, limitations, medical, like she just defies it all, and she just keeps growing and learning. And we've had such an amazing experience for the past 8 years with Kinsley. And although we celebrate all the wonderful milestones, it doesn't come without some really overwhelming, challenging times. And recently we faced quite a few. A few months ago, Kinsley got a severe infection, was in the hospital for quite some time. She was on life support, and we prayed and we just believed. And I often say to people, hope is all you ever need in life. And sometimes that's all you'll ever have. And that's the one message I'd like to send out to all the families and the patients who are living with a rare disease. Hope, hold on to your hope and keep believing, because you're so rare. And I always say this to Kinsley and everyone, being so rare, and as you see up on the screen, with a path yet to be traveled, there's no limitations. And that's like something I hold very close to myself, because there is no one direction to go because it's not defined. And that's something that really keeps me and my family inspired. So I had written, after 8 years, I've never really shared my true feelings about Kinsley and how I feel and my emotions. And at that time, I guess sleep deprivation and everything, I felt as though I needed to face all of my feelings and emotions about Kinsley and how I feel and all the things I had been hiding for a long time. And I wrote a piece. It is called Rain or Shine, Loving My Rare Child. And I'm going to share a little bit about what I wrote in there with you today. I would think this probably will resonate with many of you. Kinsley, we met a doctor once and he said, most children have their stories written, but Kinsley will write her own, which to me was just so fabulous because there was no course and she was just going to keep going no matter what. And I embraced that. I embraced her unique conditions. I stopped questioning why God, why Kinsley? Because it's hard to understand. I thought, what did I do wrong in my pregnancy? Why? I have 4 other healthy children. There were so many different questions, and with doctors not having the answers, it makes your head think a lot of things. And my life changed a lot. Friendships disappeared. Family, even, there was a lot of questions and challenges. I found myself in a different place because raising Kinsley changed my whole lifestyle and my family's. And people would say, "Oh, how are you?" I'm doing great. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. My life is all over the place, but I never wanted to share that how I truly felt until now. And what I really wanted to say was like, I'm drowning every day in a pool of just exhaustion and fear and all these things, but no one can hear me and no one can see me and I'm just there. And I found that there are a lot of people out there. There's so many people. And that's what I wanted to address today on this call is there are so many people. There are doctors, there are nurses, there are family, there are friends, there are community. But the path to finding a diagnosis and a cure it can be a lonely one and it's very challenging. And what I come to realize is there's so many people behind the scenes working hard to really help us and to get to a better place. Another challenge for me was I have older children and I would be separated from them a lot. And I'd have to make a choice, like go to the hospital with my baby or be home with my other 4 children. And that's very challenging. And I think most families in this situation know sometimes we forget how that affects our children and our other relations beyond our marriage and our working and all the different things. I wanted to share some specific things, but I'm going to go off script a little because as I was preparing this weekend for Rare Disease Day, my daughter Kinsley had a severe seizure and it happened in front of all my children and she stopped breathing. And we had to resuscitate her and get the ambulance going. And I watched my children are much older now than when Kinsley was first born. I watched them get the oxygen and call 911 and get her emergency pack and get the diastat. And I watched these little people who are now grown as a complete family trying to save their baby sister's life. And it changed my perspective greatly. And I realized that my children and my family, how it affects them. And I think in the rare disease world, the rare disease, my child or person is the major focus. And after this had happened, I realized like how very important our family is, our structures are, and my children, how this affected them. And, we're in the hospital right now. She's back there. She's sleeping in her crib. So she's doing better now. And I want to celebrate Kinsley's uniqueness, but I also want to celebrate the uniqueness of your loved ones and your family and all the people who support you through the good and the bad times. There's a couple other little quotes I wanted to share. Someone once asked me, what's it like to love a 1 minute. What it's like to love a rare child. And I said, my world is brighter. I laugh harder. I cry harder. The perspective is just so much different and so much brighter. I cherish those small things. I have love and give love with no boundaries and no limitations, which is amazing to feel. She's a sweet, happy, wicked sense of humor type of child, but she's not defined by her disease, and she's not defined by the feeding tubes and the equipment and all of that stuff. And I feel like it's important through NORD and through all this that we're not defined because of the disease. When I looked up in the dictionary, rare, the definition is unusually good or remarkable. I think that's pretty cool. To be remarkable, to be one of a kind or a few of a kind, it's something that we should celebrate and not look down as being a detriment, because it's truly, our people are amazing and just remarkable and special. And I think everybody here on this call today should celebrate themselves, the people they love, the people behind us, for that being such a remarkable group of people and working so hard to love our community and our people. So thank you so much for giving me the time to speak. And I'm going to introduce Debbie Hart. She is the president and CEO of BioNJ. Debbie?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you for really bravely sharing Kinsley's story, your story, for your inspiration. That was remarkable. Thank you so much. And happy birthday, by the way. We understand it's your birthday today.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Come on, take care.
Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Debbie Hart, and I have the honor of serving as the president and CEO of BioNJ, and we represent nearly 400 research-based life sciences companies, and I'm really proud to be part of today's really important program. And I'd like to thank Julie Raskin, Patricia Gertz, the New Jersey Rare Action Network, and certainly NORD for their dedication to increasing awareness of rare diseases. Because as we say at BioNJ, patients just can't wait. And certainly rare disease patients are, they are the quintessential patients who just can't wait. So as the rare disease community knows too well, an estimated 95% of the nearly 8,000 identified rare diseases, which affect approximately 400 million patients around the world, do not have a dedicated cure. In fact, rare diseases, when aggregated together, are not that rare really at all. According to the National Institutes of Health, 30 million Americans, or 10% of the population, have a rare disease. However, for these patients and their caregivers, there is hope as scientists are uncovering more about rare diseases at the molecular and genetic levels than ever before. In fact, there are nearly 800 new medicines in development today to treat rare diseases, everything from 168 under development for rare cancers, 120 for rare blood cancers, 192 for genetic disorders, and the list just goes on and on. And we're really proud of that at BioNJ. In 2020 alone, more than half, so 55% of novel new drug and biological approvals were orphan drugs for rare diseases. That's promise, that's hope, that's inspiring. Biopharmaceutical companies are leveraging new technologies to develop groundbreaking therapies, including gene therapies that are able to target the underlying genetic basis of some rare diseases. We're going to hear from one of them in just a little bit. The Garden State, our very own New Jersey, is leading the way in these breakthroughs, with 30% of all cell and gene therapies being worked on right here in the New Jersey region. We're so proud of our BioNJ members and our entire New Jersey life sciences ecosystem for the medicines, cures, and hope they bring to patients around the globe. Nearly 40% of FDA drug approvals over the last 2 years came from companies with a footprint in New Jersey. That's 70 FDA approvals from 43 companies, both large and small. And out of the nearly 1,000 biopharmaceutical companies working on COVID-19 programs, nearly 100 are from New Jersey alone. So the first COVID-19 vaccine came from New Jersey, Pfizer and J&J, first saliva test from Rutgers, first therapeutics from Lilly, GSK, Gilead, Merck, and Pfizer, all BioNJ members. With more than 3,200 life sciences establishments featuring multinational companies, including 8 of the top 10 R&D companies and 13 of the top 20 global pharma companies, the medical innovation taking place in the Garden State is really second to none. And we are looking to a very bright future with so much on the horizon, like the recent groundbreaking at the New Jersey Innovation and Technology Hub in New Brunswick, destined to be a center of innovation, research and development and medical education. The announcement of the Cove in Jersey City, a multi-phase waterfront development project, creating a new nexus for science and innovation. The City of Tomorrow Innovation Campus at SciTech City in Jersey City. the promising cell and gene therapy work being done at BioCentrique, and of course, the establishment of the Rare Disease Advisory Council, which Julie mentioned, a really important step in improving the lives of those in the rare disease community in New Jersey. Biopharmaceutical innovation is revolutionizing medical treatments for patients, with more than 8,000 medicines in development, 74% of which are potentially first in class. Patients have more reason to be optimistic than ever before. So let's ensure we continue to make progress in the discovery of new medicines for rare diseases and sustain our biomedical research ecosystem through policies and regulations that recognize the importance and the value of medical innovation. At BioNJ, we're committed to increase public policy advocacy programs and enhanced engagement with patient advocacy groups so that the voices of patients and their families have an even stronger presence and greater impact in drug development and healthcare decisions. To help our members, legislators, patient groups, and community participate in productive conversations on such important topics as the value of medical innovation, the need to ensure access and affordability of life-saving medicines, and more, BioNJ has created a Value of Medical Innovation campaign featuring educational tools and resources. And we'd invite you to be a part of that. You can visit bionj.org/protect-medical-innovation to learn more and to be part of BioNJ's Take Action Network. We'll keep you apprised there of important legislation and information to ensure patients and medical innovation in New Jersey are protected. At BioNJ, we believe patients should have access to the right treatment when they need it. Working together, we can make a difference to create more memories for patients and their loved ones. So thank you for having me as part of today's program, and thank you for all that you're doing on behalf of patients suffering with a rare disease. And now it's my great pleasure to welcome my colleague, the President and CEO of the Healthcare Institute of New Jersey, Dean Peranakis. Dean, the floor is yours.
Gabby, thank you, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you again to commemorate Rare Disease Day in New Jersey. And for those of you who aren't familiar with us, the Healthcare Institute of New Jersey, or HINJ as we're known, is the leading trade association for the research-based biopharmaceutical and medical technology companies in New Jersey. HINJ is always proud to partner with NORD and our local New Jersey rare disease advocates, and to use the phrase, show our stripes, to raise awareness and address the needs and issues of the rare disease community. Your commitment to advancing medical innovation is truly stellar. To this end, we were very pleased to have provided legislative expertise and guidance in the successful effort to have the State Rare Disease Advisory Council legislation enacted last year, and I congratulate you on such a momentous achievement, which it truly was. Addressing rare diseases is a particular focus for HINJ member companies who together have made New Jersey the medicine chest of the world over the past 135 years. As Julie said, today's program's theme is about various forms of uniqueness, and my remarks fall under the category of unique to innovate. What makes our life sciences communities unique is its unending commitment to patients in the tens of billions of dollars, over 108 billion to be precise, that they spend annually on research to discover and develop new cures, treatments, and technologies to improve patient outcomes and their quality of life. However, what should be of great concern to all of us is a movement spreading across the country that poses a serious threat to our ability to continue to innovate. Industry critics who don't understand or acknowledge the complexities and enormous expenditures of time, money, and effort required to develop and bring a new medicine to market threaten to upend a delicate innovation ecosystem by trying to impose standards that will impede the development of new drugs, treatments, and technologies. And as you all know so well, this is particularly critical in the rare disease area with its distinct challenges. Those who understand our industry recognize life sciences investment as a high-risk venture that requires investors to be patient, as they typically won't see a return on their investment for years, if at all. And as the statistics illustrate, there are far more failures than successes. In particular, small and startup companies, of which we have a robust community in New Jersey, rely heavily on private investors for financial support. With such a high bar to overcome to attract investment in the first place, any new obstacles to funding life sciences research will only provide further incentive for investors to put their money into other more predictable industries. We all know what the result will be: fewer drugs for fewer illnesses. Hinge and its member companies remain committed to the mission of improving human health and maintaining New Jersey's standing as a global life sciences leader. We ask that you join us in continuing to stand up for medical research and for our innovation ecosystem so that together we can develop even more breakthrough medicines, treatments, and technologies to address rare diseases and a host of other human conditions, or in some, help us continue to be unique to innovate. So with that, I thank you, and I wish you a successful and impactful program.
Thank you so much, Dean and Debbie. You are incredible leaders of the life science communities in New Jersey, and we thank you for your dedication to your work, and we celebrate all of the incredible wins and commit to work with you to ensure that there continues to be so much innovation and bringing new treatments and a better life to people with rare diseases. Now it is it's my pleasure to introduce Sylvia Lapitus, a physician, a pediatric rheumatologist from Hackensack University Medical Center. And with Sylvia joining us today, I was just really excited about linking a very common illness, in fact, a pandemic, to rare diseases, and to look at how there can be a rare disease that really emanates from something common and just sort of brings it all together with this example. So Dr. Lapitus, the floor is yours. We can't hear you. We still can't.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. So let's join.
Okay. We still can't hear you. Do you have another device, a phone? Let's see. We'll just wait. We'll wait a second while Dr. Lapitus figures out her technology challenge. And while we're waiting, we'll see if Stuart Peltz is with us.
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Okay, so let's switch it. And
Julie, I'm happy to pick it up if you like.
beautiful, beautiful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I'm happy to be back with you. And I'm so thrilled that Dr. Peltz is with us. So, you know, at BioNJ, we remember when rare disease or rare also meant small, as in most of the rare disease companies were actually small. And I am very pleased to say that that is no longer the case. And I'm very excited to introduce our next presenter, who founded a once very small, but today a New Jersey-based rare disease global powerhouse dedicated to bringing new life-changing therapies to patients with rare disorders around the globe. So I'd ask you to please welcome former BioNJ chairman and founder and CEO of Ptc Therapeutics, a gentleman of whom we are just so proud, Dr. Stuart Peltz. Stuart, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks for a few minutes to talk about PTC. So just as a background, I was at the Rutgers Medical School, and in 1998, we wanted to use the science of what we were doing to try and treat rare diseases of where there were no treatment options. And so if you think about that now, we're just on the verge of, we're going into our 25th year. We're New Jersey born and bred then, to be out of the medical school. And I think, you know, we're sort of now evolving from a company that started from the laboratory from New Jersey to, with a couple of people and a few ideas, to where we are today, where we're now probably about 1,400 people in 24 or so countries around the world. We distribute drugs to 50 countries around the globe and have employees all over. And so, really we came with the view of discovering, developing, and commercializing products for rare disorders, where we worked in RNA biology. We were probably the first company who understood the value of RNA biology of this approach and looked for approaches to use the information on the biology of RNA to make new therapies. And we now have five therapies that we are treating around the globe, for which we sell ourselves, one which we have a partnership with Roche that is commercializing it. So we've been through the whole process of building an early stage company to where we are today. And in particular, it was in rare disorders. So we understand the importance of bringing therapies to patients, small patient populations. We know that it's just as hard to bring a therapy to patients if there's only 10,000 as if not even more difficult than even larger indications. We know what it means to be the pioneer and to come to these treatments where so little could be known and where you have to pioneer a treatment. We've done this now in multiple disease states. And we know the importance of working with patient advocacy, the patients and their families, and that, just how important that is to gain not only insight from families of what their real needs are, and to work with them, but also to let them know how's it going, and in some ways to give hope, right? I mean, it's amazing how important just the fact that a company is working on a potential therapy for patients in a disease, how important that is to everybody, and what hope it ultimately brings, that someone else cares and is trying to change, in a sense, the plight of that individual. So we've been doing that now for a long time, and we know the importance of really working with the patients and their families and the patient advocacy groups. And so we've built up now, and our goal really as a company has been we've gone from now having getting our first product in 2014 and bringing on a second one in 2017, and then two others, and then the fifth. So we're now building a company that we think, well, what we're trying to build is so we bring in new treatments every 2 to 3 years, that we innovative new treatments for diseases of really high unmet medical need, where there's almost little to no treatment options. And so we've been working hard to have a steady state pipeline of new therapies and patients. And so we have this year, I think, a pretty exciting year in front of us, where we already have one product that's in gene therapy for dopamine deficiency in front of the European regulatory authorities. We're quite excited about that. And we've seen where you could take children who are flaccid and developmentally arrested, to go from that to flaccid babies to being able to walk, run, talk to their families, learn to read. So it's quite exciting. That it also be going into the FDA this year as well. And then we have 4 other registration-directed trials that are going on, like in mitochondrial disease, that are due to with associated seizures. We have Friedreich ataxia, that's a registration study in ALS, as well as PKU as well. So there's a lot of fruition of what we've been doing over the last 5 years, where a number of new and important therapies, we have, in a sense, important shots on goal that are occurring this year. a number of which will be read out this year, as well as some for next year. And I'd say that, one of our goals, we've always been a company that does high science and invests in research and innovation. And we're doing that, and we continue to do that, so that we'll have a steady stream of new therapies that we think will be innovative and continue to grow, so that we're now in the position to not only create innovation, create enough revenues so that we can continue to do this and be an enduring and forever company where we'll be treating rare diseases. So that's our story. I think it's one where we can all be proud of. It sort of was founded and grown in New Jersey and have come to be in a sense, an international biopharmaceutical company that are treating multiple rare disorders. So I'll stop there.
Well, Stuart, thank you so much. Those of us who live with rare disease every day, we really understand the impact of the work you're doing and know how incredible it is for new drugs and treatments to be in development and then come to market. So we just thank you so much for your work and know the incredible value of it. So thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today.
I also wanted to say the research that you're discussing is for me personally, my daughter with possible mitochondrial diseases and with the brain and the seizures and stuff is just very uplifting to hear that. Keep going, and I hope that we can continue to give your group and organization support, because that's really good stuff here. Because it's been the brain, you only know like a 3% of the whole, and the same thing with genetics. It's such a vast thing. So to hear that you're making progress in that is very inspirational to, I think, many in our rare disease community. So God bless and keep going.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay, we're going to check in with Sylvia.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. It's a miracle. I'm so glad to be here. Can you see me?
Yes, everything is perfect.
Oh, that's wonderful. And
Yes.
do you happen to have my slides? Because I am now connected 4 times.
I think we do. Mahi, do we have Sylvia's slides? Yes. Magic.
Oh, wonderful. I've lost you. 1 second. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Oh, great. At least you haven't lost me.
Great.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. My apologies for my technological difficulties. It is an honor to be here today. I'm a pediatric rheumatologist, and my heart really lives in rare diseases. So I was so honored to hear from Julie Raskin regarding this invitation. So thank you so much for coordinating this incredible day and for inviting me to speak about multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. And I'm going to give you a little glimpse into how it's more than meets the eye. Can I please have the next slide? So, because I'm a pediatric rheumatologist, they say 1 in 250 children have a pediatric rheumatic disease. And of course, there's multiple of those. So a lot of the conditions we take care of are inflammatory conditions are rare. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, pediatric rheumatologists started taking care of multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, which in the scope of this global pandemic is actually relatively rare. So I'm going to get more into the details of that. Next slide, please. So I always say we're stuck in a sticky situation. We got hit in so many ways with this devastating pandemic. And as a pediatrician and a pediatric rheumatologist, we were always wondering how our children would be affected, especially at the beginning. It seemed from the initial reports from China that pediatric population was relatively spared of this morbidity, mortality of this condition. Next slide, please. So the alphabet soup of COVID-19, I'm sure it's very overwhelming depending on your background, but even with the scientific background, it can be confusing. So I just wanted to speak about MIS-C, or multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, which is actually part of PASC, which is the post-acute sequelae of COVID, which includes long COVID syndrome and MIS-C. There also is an MIS-A, which is much rarer and has different criteria, but I'm going to focus today on MIS-C. Next slide, please. So the untold story of children during pediatric COVID. Although there's not that many with pediatric COVID relative to the population, but I'll show you that with the waves of the pandemic, sadly, that has really dramatically increased, especially since the vaccinations were later on in the rollout of vaccinations. But I wanted to just speak to, as of March 1st, the numbers. So in the US, there has been a total of 7,459 children with multi-system inflammatory syndrome. And thankfully, although one death is too many, there have been 63 deaths. So although that's, unfortunately, that is awful, the fact that the majority survived significantly is a testimony to how far we've come during this pandemic. I wanted to speak that the majority of kids who have this are between the ages of 5 and 13 years of age, and that it really devastates minority populations. So you can see that 58% were actually from minority populations. Hispanic Latinos were about 2,000 patients, and African Americans as well, over 2,000 patients. At least almost all had a positive COVID test prior to the diagnosis of multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, and 60% were male. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to show you pediatric COVID cases in general. As of now, there's about 17.5% of almost 70 million cases have been under 17 years of age. And that amounts to about 12 million cases of pediatric COVID in the US. And you'll see that the 7,000, even though it's still a lot of children, is actually rare relative to the 12 million who were stricken with pediatric COVID. Next slide, please. So for us in pediatrics, this was actually a familiar stranger, multi-system inflammatory syndrome. In April, the Europeans from the United Kingdom announced an alert that there was a new entity that seemed to be an inflammatory response to preceding COVID-19 infection. And this was called, at the time, PIMS, but now we call it MIS-C. And rapidly, within 2 weeks, the CDC produced criteria, published criteria, and those were that under 21 years of age, fever, laboratory markers showing severe inflammation, and multi-system organ involvement following a SARS-CoV-2 infection is actually the definition of MIS-C. So this happens usually within the 4 weeks after infection with COVID-19. And you can see from the picture that the reason we call it a familiar stranger is very reminiscent of a pediatric vasculitis, or inflammatory blood vessel disease we take care of, called Kawasaki disease, which leads to something called a strawberry tongue, where the tongue is quite red and has the spicules of a strawberry, very red eyes without any discharge from the eyes, red and swollen palms and maybe soles, and rash. Next slide, please. So multi-system inflammatory syndrome of children, the reason it's so serious is just like Kawasaki disease, but possibly more so, is about a third of patients present with severe shock. They can be quite ill. They can have multi-organ involvement, including the features I showed you of Kawasaki disease, but they could also have severe vomiting and diarrhea. They can have very severe neurological symptoms, such as what we call encephalopathy, where they can have behavioral changes, hallucinations. They can have changes in their nerves, seizures even. And the most common thing that we see is actually heart involvement, which is most commonly associated with heart failure, where it's called what we call left ventricular dysfunction, when the major muscle of the heart is not functioning properly. Next slide, please. I just want, even though it's infectious, it's not infectious. So this is actually an exaggerated immune response, inflammatory response to the prior infection. So often the story you will hear from the families is that they had very mild infection. They hardly had symptoms, but everyone in the house was sick with COVID. And a few weeks later, they got terribly ill and ended up in the hospital. Next slide, please. I just wanted to show you at the beginning of the pandemic where New Jersey fell in the setting of MIS-C. And I think New Jersey is uniquely positioned in that we've sadly experienced all the waves of this pandemic since we started off as one of the epicenters with COVID-19. And this shows, the green wave shows the spikes of actual COVID infection. And you can see the spikes of multi-system inflammatory syndrome is approximately a few weeks afterwards. Next slide, please. And you can see that New Jersey had many cases relative to the rest of the US, the highest numbers. Next slide, please. And this is where we are as of March 1st. This is a picture of the country, and it illustrates how many cases of MIS-C per state. Some states did not count them, but the ones that we have, and you can see that New Jersey had between 100 to 199 cases. So we were not the major leaders, although we were at the beginning of the pandemic. Next slide, please. I just wanted to speak, this is my slide to speak about the tangled web of uncertainty. So we had a new illness. We didn't know what caused it. We didn't know how to treat it. And we had to figure it out quickly because these kids were really sick. And there weren't that many of them, even in the scope of the pandemic. So a lot of us joined together. Next slide, please. And we really worked together to form collaborations that really expedited and facilitated treatment decisions, guidance on how to diagnose and treat these conditions so they wouldn't be missed, they wouldn't be delayed in diagnosis, and they could have better outcomes and not lead to heart failure, or of course, not lead to death. So just to highlight some of the major efforts, there's actually a treatment trial internationally called the BEST trial that looked at the different therapeutics to see which ones work better in rapid time. Multiple pediatric hospitals throughout the country developed treatment algorithm. Our network also developed treatment algorithm and shared it with each other. So no matter how much experience the treating physician would have with this condition, they would have guidance on what to do. So they would be able to diagnose this quickly, think about it, and also treat it effectively. Another key element in treating these patients is multidisciplinary care. It makes all the difference in facilitating the patient's recovery. There's a major effort in the US led by the CDC called Overcoming COVID that has involved about 70 pediatric hospitals. And they've tracked MIS-C development and outcomes. And some of the largest information that we have is from this group's excellent work. Next slide, please. So I just included some resources in case anyone is concerned about it and their own kids. There's really good information from the CDC website and also the American Academy of Pediatrics website. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to conclude in saying that MIS-C is relatively rare in the context of the frequency of pediatric COVID-19, but it has serious implications for those families who suffer with it. Thankfully, there's overwhelmingly positive outcomes in multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. A lot of the heart failure actually resolves. We hope that they don't have long-term consequences. Of course, it's a newer disease, but it seems that a year out from the diagnoses, patients' hearts are functioning properly, which is very reassuring. The major finding in longer term studies is muscle weakness, which seems to be rehabilitated with physical therapy. So these kids, even though they're so ill in the hospital, they do remarkably well, which I think is a testimony for the group effort and collaboration in expediting diagnosis and therapeutics. And I think it's important with any rare diseases to have not only national, but international collaborations. The physicians need education, the patients need education, and we need to know when there's a lot unknown, how to move forward to make patients better. And I thank you so much for your attention and for allowing me to speak today on MISC.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. That was really, really.
Yes, thank you. Such a lot of wonderful information and all the work you're doing. God bless you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Our next speaker is the Associate Director of Policies at NORD. I'd like to introduce Corinne Alberts. Corinne?
Hi, thanks, Pat, and hi, everyone. Thank you for bringing up my slides. Like Pat said, I am Corinne Alberts. I'm the Associate Director of Policy here at NORD. And like so many people on this call, my family has been impacted by rare diseases, and it's a true privilege to be here with you all today and hear Julie and Pat's really remarkable stories, and to hear from the rest of my colleagues working in this space about the amazing work that they're doing. And I am really excited to be here today and take a very quick run through the different policy and advocacy work that we are doing here at NORD. So if we can go to the next slide. Great. So rather than just listing off all of the most recent things that have happened in Congress this week, I wanted to spend the next few minutes that I have to walking through a new advocacy tool that NORD put out just before Rare Disease Day, which is the 7th edition of our state report card. So every year, the team at NORD looks at all 50 states and investigates how they are doing according to several key policy issues that we know impact many patients with rare disorders. Our goals with this yearly report are to 1, evaluate how effectively states are serving people with rare diseases, 2, track individual state progress on key issues of importance to the rare disease community year after year, and 3, enable effective advocacy by providing a tangible tool to highlight how your state is measuring up against other states in these key areas. So this year, we graded states in 9 different categories. We added one new category. And I'm going to go through each of these issue areas very quickly to give a high-level overview, but then also pause in a few spots to provide some exciting New Jersey-specific updates. So can we go to the next slide? The first category that we grade states on is Medicaid financial eligibility. And this is a really simple category where we basically ask whether a state has used the tools available to them to ensure that their Medicaid program is open to all low-income Americans. Now, New Jersey is one of the 39 states that have adopted Medicaid expansion, meaning that you guys very simply got an A here. We also grade states on their coverage of medical nutrition. Many patients with rare disorders require medical foods as part of their necessary treatment. However, insurance coverage of medical nutrition for special dietary use is inconsistent. It can often be insufficient and vary really widely depending on the patient's diagnosis, their plan type, and the state that they're living in. At the federal level, NORD is a supporter of the Medical Nutrition Equity Act, which would greatly alleviate many of these issues, but we're also working at the state level and urging states to use their authority over Medicaid and certain state-regulated plans to assure comprehensive coverage of medical nutrition. Next slide, please. Newborn screening is perhaps one of the most effective public health programs in America, and it's the process through which many, many newborns are first diagnosed with a rare disorder. Every single state and territory throughout the country has a newborn screening program, but they are not all on equal footing. So in this section of the report card, we look at each newborn screening program and we grade them on whether the state has the attributes in place that we at NORD think are critical to having the most successful newborn screening program that you can. On the right side of the screen, we have prescription drug out-of-pocket costs. In recent years, that has been a push in state legislatures to assist patients who are struggling with increasingly high out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs. And states are exploring different types of legislation, such as deductible protections, cost-sharing caps, and other types of policies in order to provide some relief to families who are struggling with this issue. So again, this is a section where we look at the different protections that a state has in place and use that to create a grade. Next slide, please. We also grade states on what they are doing to protect patients with Medicaid or state-regulated insurance. I'm going through these very quickly. I know that, I'm sorry, but I want to make sure I'm using my time well. But in these sections, we check to see if a state is reining in dangerous junk insurance plans that don't have to cover essential health care that we all know that patients with rare disorders depend on. We also check to see whether states are restricting access in some way to Medicaid coverage through co-pays or a work requirement. These are both categories where New Jersey, unsurprisingly, did really well this year because there are so many robust protections in place. Next slide, please. Step therapy is a process by which insurers require patients to take one or more alternative medications before they can access the medicines that were initially prescribed to them by their provider. This is an area, again, where a state has some control and lawmakers can take action to put protections around how step therapy is used to make sure that it is not overreaching and delaying patient access to the medicine that they really need. And then we have Ardex. We've already talked about this a bit today, and this is probably one of the most exciting categories that I get to talk about. I think we all know that patients with rare disorders face many unique challenges, and lawmakers don't always understand the experience of living with a rare disease. What an Ardex does is it provides an opportunity for rare disease advocates, including patients, clinicians, and others, to come together and educate elected officials about the needs of New Jersey residents with a rare disease. New Jersey did sign into law an Ardex this past summer. It isn't quite up and running yet, as it's going to take some time to implement, but there is much more to come on this exciting topic. Next slide. Great, so last but not least, we have telehealth. Telehealth has been a huge boon to many patients with rare disorders throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, a NORD survey found that 40% of rare disease patients traveled more than 60 miles for their routine care quite regularly. This is a common issue that we hear about in the rare disease community, as many patients have to travel quite often across state lines in order to see the one or two specialists in the nation who's actually knowledgeable about their rare condition. This can lead to a whole host of issues. For one, that kind of travel takes time and resources that many people don't have. And it also creates insurance issues and licensure issues, and all of these just create barriers between a patient and their care. So NORD sees telehealth as a critical tool to overcome these barriers and ultimately improve health outcomes, which is why we're strongly encouraging states to join an interstate medical licensure compact, which helps to streamline the licensing process for physicians looking to practice in multiple states so that they can provide care via telehealth across state lines. So exciting update here, when we completed the state report card for the period we were grading for, New Jersey was not a member of the interstate licensure compact, and so you guys got a failing grade. However, earlier this year, New Jersey did join the interstate medical licensure compact, and so when we do the 8th edition of the state report card, you guys are going to see New Jersey's grade significantly improve. Next slide, please. Great, so this is the end of the road for me, but if you want to learn more about these issues and the policy work that NORD is doing on all of these topics, you can go to our website at rarediseases.org. You can also check out more information on our state report card and find a PDF printable version of the state report card there if you want to learn more about how New Jersey did this year. Thank you all again for having me here today and for allowing me to run through these complicated topics at a breakneck pace. That's it for me. It is now my pleasure to pass the baton over to my colleague, Kristen Angel, Associate Director of Advocacy at NORD.
Good morning. I was going to say good afternoon, but we're still morning. So good morning, everybody. Thank you, Corinne, for that great update. I did, for those of you that did not see it, I put the link to the New Jersey Rare Disease report card in the chat box. So the link is right there for you guys to view. I'd like to first take a moment. Julie and Patricia have been leading the efforts for the New Jersey Rare Action Network as our volunteer rare community ambassadors. And I just really want to take a moment and acknowledge their hard work and dedication to the rare disease community on all the different fronts, and thank them for today's event. I think it's been incredible thus far, and I know we're winding down, but thank you both for all your hard work. And, Patricia, just being in a hospital room while you have to present and do this is just drives home like all the work that still needs to be done in the rare disease space. And, we do appreciate all that you do. So thank you. I'm excited today to give a quick update. So our Rare Action Network program is, I believe we're going into our 6th year of having the program in our volunteer ambassador program. We're working closely with our ambassadors nationwide to develop events and activities within the states to raise awareness and to keep and to continue our advocacy efforts to improve the lives of rare disease patients and their families. In addition to, we are also going to be rolling out this year additional ways to engage the rare disease community on a more regular basis to provide better understanding of the challenges and needs of the rare disease communities in your states, specifically in New Jersey. I'd first like to suggest, if you are not currently a member of the New Jersey Rare Action Network, if you could visit rarenj.org and sign up today. That will get you continuous email communications about events and activities, both at the state level and on any federal advocacy initiatives, such as some of the things that Corinne had just covered. So be sure to sign up for the New Jersey Rare Action Network. In an effort to bring more awareness to the community and the public about rare diseases and connect patients and families to the resources and information, we are seeking additional volunteers to get more involved with the New Jersey Rare Action Network in the coming months and going into the coming years. We will be announcing new opportunities to collaborate with the rare community and different ways to get involved. Some examples of just basically sharing your story, speaking opportunities, helping plan events and activities within the state. Part of this launch also includes a new virtual information series that we're going to be launching in the spring. We're really excited about this. The topics are of importance to the rare disease community. We developed the content and topics for these information sessions based on what the community members in the rare disease space have asked for and are in need of. If you or someone you know is interested in getting more involved with the New Jersey Rare Action Network, please connect with Julie or Patricia. And Julie, Pat, I don't know if you guys want to pop your emails in the chat so folks have them, or you may already have them, but please do reach out. And as these opportunities become available, we will be communicating out to the public. I know there will be an opportunity coming out in the next week or two. I'm not quite ready to announce it, but it's really exciting. And we want to get people more engaged and more involved with all of you, and so that we can develop a program that's sustainable and also addresses the needs of the community. I would now like to introduce I believe our final speaker, Carol Tordella, the Director of Communications at the Life Raft Group. Carol.
Thank you, Kristen. Hi, I'm Carolyn, as she said. I'm the Communications Director at the Life Raft Group. We're located in Wayne, New Jersey, and it's really a pleasure to be able to share with fellow New Jerseyans about the Life Raft Group. I get to tell the story about our disease and our group and our patients all the time, but I've never had a chance in this kind of forum with fellow New Jerseyans, so I'm really excited about that. So we're a patient advocacy organization, and we support patients and caregivers that are dealing with a rare sarcoma. It's a soft tissue sarcoma called gastrointestinal stromal tumor, which presents mainly in the stomach lining. We call it GIST, G-I-S-T, for an easier way to talk about it. And it affects about 3,000 to 6,000 people a year. And it's most often either misdiagnosed or incidentally diagnosed. The age range is 7 years to 80 years old, but the greatest number of patients is over 50. There are no blood tests to tell you that you have this cancer. Patients most often present with symptoms like a stomach ache, anemia, bleeding, all of which can be very intermittent and happen over a course of time where there's no regularity to it. And it doesn't always prompt a doctor to perform a CT, which you need for diagnosis. Sometimes GISTs are undiagnosed until there's complications in a pregnancy or when an emergency situation arises. And there's no known cause. And the hard truth is there's no cure. Though surgery could be the last you see of this cancer, most patients are on a cancer drug treatment for the rest of their lives and will have regular screening. In about 20% of the cases, tumors can return, progress, or metastasize. So our patients need to be informed on potential next steps. It's our organization's primary mission to equip our patients and caregivers to become expert self-advocates. And we want to give them the tools they need to connect with GIST experts, find appropriate clinical trials, and get access to advanced mutational testing beyond just diagnosis so that they can get appropriate, effective drug treatments. We believe that education and connection are key to this empowerment when it comes to rare diseases. We accomplish this in a number of ways. First, we produce a lot of educational materials. We have the latest GIST 101 series on what the disease is all about, and many webinars from our experts on advanced treatments and what to do with advanced diseases, and on clinical trials and what is happening in research. We hold 5 to 8 GIST days of learning at major cancer centers across the country each year. And we interact with our private Facebook group and a private email community so that we can answer questions and patients and caregivers can talk to each other about what's going on in their disease. We're available, our staff is available by email or phone for referrals to experts, to talk about side effect support, and to help accessing treatments and get recommendations for clinical trials. We report all the current research and drug development and about clinical trials in progress for our community to keep them informed. Another point of contact is that when a patient or a caregiver joins the LRG, they get a personal reach out from a member of our staff and from one of our 18 state representatives who are volunteers that serve us in the US. We're a global organization, so we also have liaisons for the LRG in 48 countries around the world. We hold patient and caregiver support groups in person and online. We want our patients and caregivers to know they're not alone in this journey. And we work to be a solid point of contact, as well as an honest broker for patients to doctors, researchers, and pharma, facilitating healthcare, compassionate uses of drugs that are on trial. We hold virtual tumor boards for difficult cases where experts from around the world can weigh in, as well as facilitating access to drugs that may not be available due to financial reasons or country restrictions. Another way we reach out is we have a team of GIST mentors, about 25 volunteers who are patients and caregivers who get matched up with other GIST patients and caregivers, and they walk that journey with that patient or caregiver one-on-one. We match mutations, we try to match their walk and their age. So that they're not alone, because not everybody has a huge support network and we want someone to be there for them. This program's international also. And these volunteers perform an incredibly important part of being with that person, because they can really understand what that patient or caregiver is going through. Lastly, but not least at all, is we curate the largest GIST registry in the world with data from over 2,400 GIST patients who have walked this journey for over 20 years. We document a patient's journey from diagnosis to their death, and have been able to work with patients concerning clinical trials from this data. We document side effects to talk about trends in side effects and drug toxicity and overall survival trends. And through this data have affected NCCN guidelines and CAP guidelines. The registry also gives patients and caregivers access to their entire GIST history wherever they need it. We also, I briefly touched upon this, but we empower oncologists to reach out to us. We are an honest broker in the middle of all the stakeholders. And we have a project called Project Surveillance, where doctors can come to us as that honest broker and share de-identified cases for review and ask for virtual tumor boards on advanced cases. Sometimes the review board on that can be 20 to 30, maybe even 40 advanced experts in GIST across the world. Our hopes for 2022 are that advanced mutational testing becomes the standard of care for all GIST patients early in the process, that clinical trials can become more remote for patients because a lot of our patients do have to travel quite a distance to get to clinical trials, and that we can deal with a lot more of the financial issues that come into play with drugs becoming generics in the coming years with the stakeholders that are involved in that. So these are some of the ways that we try to empower our patients. We really believe that the more that you know, the more you feel like you have a modicum of control of what's going on in your life and in your journey. So with that, I'll hand the meeting back to Julie and Patricia. Thank you.
Patricia, you're on mute.
I know, and now I'm on twice because I logged. Do you hear echo?
Yes, yes. Okay, so I'll just thank everyone so much for coming. We're over our time. Carol, that was great. All the speakers were fabulous. And we learned so much. I'm personally so interested in connecting with a number of you to learn more about what you're doing. I know Patricia is. And together we will continue to have even more programs. As Kristen told you, we want to invite all of you to be volunteers and be part of the Rare Action Network in New Jersey. And together we will continue to make progress, move forward, support the rare disease community, ensure that there are new and better treatments and faster diagnosis and access to the new treatment. So thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you soon, and reach out anytime. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happen.
Thank you.